Ever wonder what happened to some of the most unique and delicious sandwiches from our past? From regional delights to rare creations, many sandwiches have sadly faded into history, leaving behind nothing but memories and whispers of their existence. Join us as we take a bite into the forgotten world of sandwiches that once graced menus and kitchen tables. From the quirky to the classic, these 25 sandwiches tell a story of changing tastes, traditions, and cultures. Stick around and discover what made each of them special and why they disappeared. You might even find inspiration to revive one yourself. 1. Fried Spam Sandwich. When I think of the fried Spam sandwich, I can't help but imagine a time when necessity bred creativity in kitchens across the world. It emerged during World War II, a period when traditional protein sources were not easily available. Spam, with its long shelf life, became a pantry essential for many families trying to stretch their rations. This sandwich was born out of practicality, but quickly won hearts with its smoky, salty flavor. The magic of the fried Spam sandwich lies in its simplicity. Slices of Spam were grilled to a crispy perfection and combined with either mustard or mayonnaise depending on individual tastes. Adding a slice of cheese elevated the experience, melting over the hot Spam as it was sandwiched between two slices of toasted bread. While it may sound basic by today's standards, this sandwich was a lifesaver for those navigating the hardships of war, offering much-needed sustenance and comfort. Over the years, as fresh meats became more readily available, the fried Spam sandwich fell out of favor for many. Yet, there's a nostalgia associated with it, especially for those who grew up in those challenging times. To this day, I believe it serves as a testament to the resilience and adaptability of home cooks, who made the most of what they had. 2. Mock Chicken Sandwich. The mock chicken sandwich doesn't get the recognition it deserves, in my opinion. This Depression-era creation was a brilliant response to the lack of affordable chicken. Families struggling to make ends meet had to get imaginative, and this sandwich epitomizes that spirit of resourcefulness. It mimicked the texture and flavor of chicken with ingredients you wouldn't expect, and that's where the genius lies. The core of the sandwich was a blend of chopped tomatoes, beaten eggs, grated cheese, onions, and herbs. Butter and seasonings brought the mixture together into a creamy, hearty filling that was cooked to perfection before being placed in sandwich buns. What I find remarkable is the way these humble ingredients, many of which were pantry staples, came together to create something so satisfying. However, like many other Depression-era dishes, the mock chicken sandwich began to disappear as real chicken became affordable and accessible to the average household. While it might not hold the same appeal today, I think there's an undeniable charm in revisiting this sandwich. It reminds us how ingenuity in the kitchen allowed families to thrive during some of the toughest times in modern history. 3. Sloppy Joe. Ah, the Sloppy Joe. A messy, delicious icon of comfort food. This sandwich has perhaps the most debated origin story of all. Was it born in Havana in 1917 or Sioux City, Iowa in the 1930s? We may never know for certain, but what I do know is that it became a staple in American households during the 1940s, and for good reason. The beauty of the Sloppy Joe is in its rich and slightly tangy filling. It features ground beef cooked with onions and a tomato-based sauce. Some versions incorporate ketchup or tomato sauce mixed with a dash of Worcestershire sauce, creating a deeply flavorful and saucy mixture perfectly suited for a hamburger bun. The result? A satisfying blend of savory and sweet that leaves you licking your fingers. Through the years, even as tastes evolved, the Sloppy Joe stayed a beloved favorite for many. It's hard not to appreciate something so unpretentious yet so satisfying. Although it may not be as popular as it once was, it's still a shining example of how the simplest ingredients can create pure culinary joy. 4. Peanut Butter and Mayonnaise Sandwich. The peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich is one of the more polarizing entries on this list, and I can understand why. For many, the idea of combining peanut butter's nutty richness with the creamy, tangy flavor of mayonnaise might feel strange or even downright wrong. But during the 1920s and the Great Depression, it wasn't about gourmet preferences, it was about affordability, nutrition, and ease of preparation. This sandwich was a no-frills solution to hunger. With just two simple ingredients, peanut butter and mayonnaise, spread between slices of bread, it provided families with a meal that was quick, filling, and relatively cheap. Peanut butter brought protein to the table, while mayonnaise added extra calories, which were especially important during the leanest of times. For children growing up in that era, this sandwich was often a lunchbox staple. Today, the combination has largely faded from view, and it's hard to find anyone who eats it regularly. However, I can't help but admire the way it brought sustenance to those who needed it most. While it might not be to everyone's taste, the peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich deserves a nod of appreciation for the role it played during an incredibly challenging period of history. 5. Cheese and Marmite Sandwich. Even now, just mentioning it takes me back to a simpler time when Marmite graced the breakfast tables of so many UK households. This sandwich was a humble, yet delicious choice, particularly for school lunches or quick snacks. The ingredients couldn't be more straightforward: cheese and Marmite on slices of white or wholemeal bread. For me, The appeal is in the contrast. The sharp, salty tang of marmite pairs beautifully with the creaminess of cheese, creating a flavor profile that's both comforting and bold. Not everyone loves marmite. Its slogan, after all, is love it or hate it. But for those who do, this sandwich was an essential treat. While the cheese and marmite sandwich isn't entirely forgotten, it still retains some cultural nostalgia in the UK. It's no longer the go-to staple it once was. Modern options have replaced it, but for fans of marmite, this sandwich will always hold a special place in their hearts. To me, it represents the quirky yet resourceful nature of British culinary tradition. 6. Chicken liver sandwich. I've always found something fascinating about the chicken liver sandwich. Back in the 1950s, it was a staple for many, celebrated for its rich and savory flavor. The inclusion of marinated chicken livers gave this sandwich an edge. It was nothing like the cold cuts we're used to today. I imagine the tangy marinade, carefully crafted with spices, added a depth of flavor that paired beautifully with the mayonnaise. Add some crispy lettuce and a slice of juicy tomato, and you had a hearty, satisfying meal. What made it even more special was the choice of bread, whole wheat, which rounded out the taste and introduced a wholesome element. But the chicken liver sandwich wasn't for everyone, and I think that played a key role in its decline. It's not just the distinct, intense flavor of chicken liver that's divisive. There was also the effort required to prepare these sandwiches. Marinating the livers perfectly, cooking them to the right consistency, and assembling the sandwich made it a labor-intensive option. Over time, as convenience became king and simpler, faster options emerged, this sandwich slowly faded from popularity. For many, its complex preparation and bold flavor just couldn't compete with the more streamlined and familiar sandwiches we see today. 7. Monte Cristo sandwich. The Monte Cristo sandwich is nostalgic and indulgent, a luxurious spin on the classic French croque monsieur. To me, this sandwich encapsulated comfort and creativity in one meal. Made with ham and cheese, it was dipped in egg batter, or even a thicker flour-based batter, then fried on a pan or submerged in hot oil to achieve a golden, crispy exterior. What truly set it apart was the interplay of textures and flavors. Just imagine the melty cheese oozing out of salty ham, all enveloped in a crisp, slightly sweet layer of cooked coating. Some places even topped or served it with powdered sugar and a dollop of jam to enhance the sweet and savory contrast. Its popularity skyrocketed, especially in the mid-20th century, when Disneyland's Blue Bayou restaurant featured the Monte Cristo on their menu. People went wild for it. Disney was always ahead of its time, bringing food and fun together in ways that resonated. Still, even this beloved sandwich has lost its shine over time. Perhaps it's the caloric decadence that turns some away in today's health-conscious world, or perhaps it's simply that people are gravitating toward lighter, less indulgent fare. Either way, the Monte Cristo remains a classic, at least in spirit, even if it's harder to find these days. 8. Egg and sardine sandwich. The egg and sardine sandwich feels like a relic of a simpler time. Perfumed by the oceanic aroma of sardines and balanced by the creamy richness of mashed hard-boiled eggs, it was once a practical, protein-packed meal for many during the early 20th century. Sardines, for all their bold and fishy reputation, were incredibly affordable and shelf-stable, which made them a dependable ingredient during times when fresh protein wasn't accessible to all. I often imagine families in the 1920s enjoying this sandwich, appreciating not just its nutritional value but also its distinct flavor profile. However, I fully understand why this sandwich fell out of favor. Sardines aren't exactly the most universally appealing ingredient. They're divisive, to say the least. Plus, as refrigeration became more widespread and affordable, people shifted toward fresher, less intense protein sources like chicken or turkey. Hard-boiled eggs on their own remained a popular sandwich option, hello, egg salad, but sardines have largely been relegated to gourmet or niche recipes. It's interesting to think about how something as practical as an egg and sardine sandwich could once be an everyday meal but now feels like a culinary curiosity from the past. 9. Deviled ham sandwich. Deviled ham sandwiches bring a spark of nostalgia for those who remember them fondly. I've always been intrigued by the concept of deviling foods, that is, spicing them up with a flavorful mix of seasonings. The deviled ham filling was made by grinding ham and mixing it with a blend of spices, mayonnaise, and mustard, creating a creamy, zesty spread that was both savory and spicy. It was simple, yet something special about the preparation made it a standout option during its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. What I find particularly interesting is how practical this sandwich was. The canned version of deviled ham, still available today, had an incredible shelf life, which made it ideal for families who needed a quick, ready-to-use ingredient. Despite its appeal then, times have changed. The rise of fresh, preservative-free products has caused the once-beloved deviled ham to fall out of favor. Additionally, the bold, spicy flavor that once made it a star now seems too strong for the lighter palates of modern consumers. While deviled ham still exists, the sandwiches it once graced are rarely seen outside of vintage recipe books and specialty food discussions. 10. Potted meat sandwich. The potted meat sandwich stories remind me of how people's ingenuity has continued to evolve with food preservation techniques. Long before refrigeration was commonplace, potted meat was a clever solution to extend the life of perishable food, particularly in the early 20th century. The process of slow cooking and preserving meat in its own fat created a spreadable, concentrated form of protein. Slathered on buttered bread, it was a simple yet effective meal that helped sustain countless households during difficult times. But as practical and reliable as potted meat was, it's no surprise that its popularity dwindled with the advent of modern refrigeration. We no longer needed heavily preserved spreads for everyday meals when fresh ingredients became widely available. These days, potted meat is largely forgotten, often regarded as something of a culinary oddity. Still, I find a certain charm in imagining these sandwiches being lovingly prepared back in the day, when they were not just meals, but solutions to the challenges of a rapidly industrializing world. They're a reminder of how far we've come in food innovation and accessibility. 11. Banana and mayonnaise sandwich. The banana and mayonnaise sandwich is probably one of the most peculiar culinary creations to come out of mid-20th century America, particularly in the southern United States. Growing up, I would hear older relatives recount how this sandwich was a staple during their youth, often served not just for lunch, but even as a quick snack. The ingredients couldn't be simpler. Slices of ripe banana paired with a generous slather of mayonnaise, all tucked between two slices of white bread. On paper, it may seem like an odd juxtaposition of flavors, and admittedly not everyone is excited at the prospect of sweet and savory melding in this way. But back then, the appeal of the banana and mayonnaise sandwich lay in its simplicity and affordability. During the post-war period, many families turned to inexpensive, accessible ingredients to create filling and satisfying meals. For Southern households, bananas and mayonnaise were pantry standards, and this sandwich became a quick way to satisfy a craving or stretch a meal. Despite its comfort food status in the 1950s and 1960s, the banana and mayonnaise sandwich eventually lost its footing as global culinary influences diversified American palates, and as people grew more skeptical of unconventional combinations, this once-beloved sandwich faded into memory. Today it's often regarded as an unusual relic of Southern food culture, though some still swear by its unique charm. 12. Creamed corn sandwich. The creamed corn sandwich is another forgotten treasure that holds a special place in the realm of simple yet satisfying meals. This sandwich, unlike many others, catered more toward vegetarians and was particularly favored for its nutritious and budget-friendly profile. My first encounter with the concept of this sandwich came from an old family recipe book, buried between notes about casseroles and soups. It intrigued me with its focus on creamed corn as the star ingredient. Paired with cheese, fresh veggies, herbs, and buttered bread, it is the epitome of straightforward cooking that doesn't compromise on flavor. What made the creamed corn sandwich so popular was its accessibility. During a time when vegetables were a primary component of many diets, it presented a way to transform pantry staples into something hearty and delicious. Plus, the creamy texture of the corn and cheese melting together created a comfort food that appealed to both adults and children alike. It required minimal effort to prepare, which made it a hit in households where time and resources were occasionally stretched thin. However, as with many vegetarian-centric dishes from the past, the creamed corn sandwich began to lose its charm in later decades. Perhaps it didn't feel exciting enough as food trends moved toward bolder flavors and more complex preparations. What remains is a nostalgic nod to a time when wholesome simplicity could shine as brightly as any gourmet dish. 13. Cucumber sandwich. There's something undeniably elegant about a cucumber sandwich. Originating from Victorian-era British tea traditions, this sandwich symbolizes sophistication and refined simplicity. I'll admit, it feels hard to picture this humble creation alongside some of the more adventurous options on this list, yet its cultural significance makes it a standout. Thinly sliced cucumbers, often soaked lightly in vinegar or sprinkled with salt, rest atop either butter or cream cheese. These delicate flavors are nestled between the softest, crustless white bread, resulting in a sandwich that feels more delicate than hearty. The appeal of the cucumber sandwich lay in its lightness, perfect for accompanying a pot of tea or breaking up a long afternoon with a refreshing bite. It served as a centerpiece at high society gatherings in the Victorian age, a time when even the simplest ingredients could be elevated with proper presentation. But like society itself, food preferences evolved with time. What was once considered chic in the 19th century grew outdated in the 20th, leaving the cucumber sandwich a vestige of a bygone era. Still, I can't help but appreciate the charm of this sandwich. It reminds me of how food connects with culture and class. While it's rare to find someone serving cucumber sandwiches outside of historical reenactments or niche tea parties, they continue to stand as a testament to the culinary traditions of Victorian Britain. 14. Tongue sandwich. Few sandwiches are as divisive as the tongue sandwich. Originating in Jewish delicatessens and European bistros, it once boasted a loyal following among those who cherished its rich, beefy flavor. My introduction to this sandwich occurred at a deli during a road trip, where the slow-cooked beef tongue was served on rye bread with a dollop of spicy mustard. I remember hesitating at first, unsure about trying something so unconventional, but the taste was unforgettable. Tender, savory, and satisfying in ways I hadn't expected. Tongue, as an ingredient, was highly valued for its unique texture and depth of flavor, making it a sought-after delicacy for much of its history. The sandwich itself brought these qualities to a wider audience, particularly in urban areas where Jewish immigrants shared their culinary heritage. Mustard, horseradish, or even pickles often accompanied the dish, adding brightness to balance the rich meat. By all accounts, it was a sandwich of substance meant to be enjoyed slowly and fully. However, societal shifts saw the tongue sandwich fall out of favor. For many, the idea of consuming tongue became more of a squeamish novelty than an everyday treat. Despite its flavor, it was eventually overshadowed by more approachable cuts of meat, relegating it to a niche market. It may not be as popular as it once was, but in the right deli, this sandwich still carries an air of tradition and authenticity. 15. Cheese Dream Sandwich. The Cheese Dream Sandwich is perhaps the epitome of wartime ingenuity, providing comfort during an era of uncertainty. Originating in the early 1900s, this open-faced sandwich was the savior of many households faced with limited resources. At its core, the sandwich consists of a slice of bread topped with cheese and grilled to golden perfection. Its beauty lies in its adaptability. Breadcrumbs, honey, or even sliced tomatoes could be added depending on what was available. For me, the cheese dream evokes a sense of nostalgia, even though it predated my childhood. It's easy to understand why it became so beloved. The warmth of melted cheese paired with the crispiness of toasted bread creates a feeling of indulgence, even when budgets were tight. During tough times, this sandwich provided a small but meaningful sense of comfort to those who enjoyed it. But as society moved into more prosperous decades, the cheese dream began to fall by the wayside. The introduction of more sophisticated versions of grilled cheese, along with the advent of convenience foods, meant this humble relic was forgotten by younger generations. 16. The Scrapple Sandwich. The Scrapple sandwich has its roots firmly planted in Pennsylvania Dutch cuisine, a testimony to the practicality and ingenuity of a community that left no scrap behind. Scrapple itself is an unassuming yet complex creation. A loaf made from pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices, cooked down, formed into a block, and then sliced and pan-fried. The sandwich takes this humble but hearty component and places it between two thick slices of bread, often topped with mustard or even drizzled with maple syrup. I can almost picture the crisp edges of the Scrapple after it's fried, golden brown and crackling, nestled in rustic bread that soaks up the fatty juices. What struck me most when I learned about this sandwich was its practicality. Here's a dish born out of resourcefulness. It was about making the most of every part of an animal. I imagine it resonated with people because of its nourishing simplicity, perfect for farmers and laborers after a long day of hard work. While Scrapple itself still exists as a regional delicacy, especially in the mid-Atlantic, its transformation into a sandwich has become less common. Despite this, the Scrapple sandwich stands as a nostalgic ode to a time when practicality and comfort food went hand in hand. 17. Chicken and Cranberry Sandwich. The chicken and cranberry sandwich is one of those creations that feels deeply tied to the holiday season. It's less a year-round staple and more of a festive indulgence that brings together flavors reminiscent of a Thanksgiving plate. This sandwich combines roasted chicken, often leftovers from a celebratory meal, with sweet and tangy cranberry sauce. The standout addition? Brie cheese or sometimes a spread of mayo, all encased in thick slices of artisan bread. I love the thoughtfulness behind this combination. Cranberries add just the right touch of acidity to cut through the richness of the roasted chicken and cheese. With brie melting softly into the bread, it almost feels like a culinary hug, warm, soft, and luxurious. I like to think of this sandwich as one born out of the need to creatively repurpose leftovers, especially when you've prepared a feast and have more food than you know what to do with. Though it may have drifted from popularity, I see it as an early example of how people fused tradition with innovation in their kitchens. 18. Spam and Pineapple Sandwich. The Spam and Pineapple Sandwich transports me to mid-century America, a time when convenience foods were all the rage and Spam emerged as a household name. It's a sandwich that might raise an eyebrow today, given its unconventional combination of ingredients, but back then it must have seemed like an inspired pairing. Fried slices of Spam are layered with pineapple rings, sometimes grilled for extra sweetness, and optionally paired with banana or honey. This sandwich is unapologetically bold, sweet, and savory, qualities that might surprise modern palates but were well loved in its time. Surprisingly, the Spam and pineapple combo reminds me of Hawaiian pizza, a polarizing food but one that undeniably has its following. The sandwich likely represented a mix of international inspiration and domestic convenience, standing as a quirky yet functional snack. It's easy to understand why this sandwich fell out of favor. Food trends changed, and Spam itself became less glamorous as fresh foods took precedence. Still, I can't help but admire its kitschy charm and adventurous spirit. 19. Anchovy Paste Sandwich. To me, the anchovy paste sandwich is perhaps the most fascinating of all. From the 1950s and 1960s, this sandwich feels like it came right out of pop culture, synonymous with retro delicacies that now seem exotic. Anchovy paste would be blended with breadcrumbs, milk, and olive oil to create a spreadable filling, sometimes accompanied by fresh cucumber and served on toasted bread. I have to admit, anchovy paste might not be for everyone, but for those who enjoy anchovies, this sandwich would be a salty, umami-packed delight. It's interesting how tastes evolve, though, isn't it? Anchovies have an incredibly intense flavor that doesn't often feature in casual snacks today. I imagine this sandwich was perfect for cocktail parties or as an upscale hors d'oeuvre, a trend reflective of the culinary aspirations of mid-century households. Even though it may not have maintained mainstream appeal, I think this sandwich is the epitome of niche gastronomic treasures. It appeals to those who enjoy robust, salty flavors and are willing to experiment when it comes to unconventional ingredients. These days, anchovy pastes and spreads might still be used as flavoring in dishes, but as the centerpiece of a sandwich? That's practically a forgotten art. 20. Bacon and peanut butter sandwich. Now here's a sandwich that oozes indulgence while simultaneously making you tilt your head in curiosity. The bacon and peanut butter sandwich. Dating back to the 1950s and 1960s, this sandwich combines salty and rich bacon with creamy, sometimes crunchy, peanut butter. Occasionally, banana slices are added for an extra layer of texture and sweetness. I think what makes this sandwich so intriguing is its unapologetic commitment to its flavors. There's nothing subtle about peanut butter or bacon. Together they create a smoky, nutty, salty, sweet bite that you wouldn't expect to work but surprisingly does. Of course, this is also a snack that feels incredibly decadent, probably too much for an everyday meal. It's protein-packed, perhaps making it an option for those looking for an energy boost in times when sugary snacks weren't as dominant. However, I can understand why it fell out of favor. Today's emphasis on balanced nutrition might make it feel a bit too heavy for modern diets, and the combination might still feel unusual to those who didn't grow up with it. Even so, it's delightful anytime I hear stories of people daring to recreate this sandwich, celebrating an era when taste buds were open to all kinds of experimental pairings. 21. Pimento cheese sandwich. There's something almost magical about pimento cheese sandwiches. Often referred to as the caviar of the South, pimento cheese sandwiches were a staple in American households through much of the 20th century, especially in the southern United States. I still remember the smooth, creamy texture of the spread paired with fluffy white bread. It was a sandwich you didn't make for special occasions. It was one you made because it felt like home, pure and comforting in its simplicity. The origins of the pimento cheese sandwich date back to the early 20th century, and the combination was ingenious. Affordable and easy to make, it satisfied both the taste buds and the wallet. The main ingredients? Mayonnaise, warm milk, shredded cheddar cheese, and those bright red pimento peppers came together to create a spread that was as versatile as it was flavorful. Sure, it was a sandwich filling, but it could also find its way into crackers, celery sticks, and even baked recipes. Nowadays, you might still find pimento cheese sandwiches at Southern-style restaurants or events like the Masters Tournament, but seeing someone make them at home feels rarer. The comforting Southern charm and traditions these sandwiches evoke are what make them unforgettable to me, even if they've faded in popularity over the years. 22. Mock ham salad sandwich. Mock ham salad sandwiches always struck me as ingenious, a testament to how creative people could be in stretching their food budgets. Born out of the need for economical solutions in the mid-20th century, these sandwiches highlight mid-century frugality, improvisation, and a little humor. After all, calling something mock ham made it sound grander than it really was, a culinary optimism in a time of practical constraint. I can still picture the exact ingredients laid out on the counter: ground bologna, mayonnaise, relish, and maybe a shake or two of black pepper or paprika for flair. The bologna was key. It might have been humble, but when finely chopped and blended with creamy mayo and tangy relish, it had an uncanny ability to mimic ham salad's taste and texture. Plus, it spread beautifully onto slices of bread. Mock ham salad was the ultimate lunchbox sandwich. It was economical, filling, and truthfully, kind of fun. My family often made it when we had leftover bologna, turning simple ingredients into something delicious and a little fancy, at least to me as a kid. Looking back, I realize how much these sandwiches embodied an era, one where thriftiness and satisfaction could coexist. Even though they've disappeared from everyday menus, the idea of mock ham salad sandwiches brings back fond images of simpler times. 23. Victory sandwich. The victory sandwich holds a special place in history, not simply as a meal but as a symbol of resilience and resourcefulness. Imagine a nation pushing through difficult times, such as the post-war era, and leaning on buttered bread, mustard, and affordable cold cuts or vegetables. On the surface, it might sound basic, but there was something deeply unifying about what these sandwiches represented. I imagine the care and intention behind making a victory sandwich. Each layer was put together with purpose, even when the ingredients were modest. Buttered bread itself, a hefty commodity for some, added richness to whatever sparse fillings people could manage to obtain. Mustard added a tangy, bold kick, helping elevate a slice of ham or maybe just some crisp vegetables. It didn't matter what you had as long as you could make it work. And that made these sandwiches feel special. Personally, I love how the victory sandwich isn't just food. It's a reminder of how people made do during tough times, combining limited resources without losing hope. Although they highlight an era of deprivation, they also showcase the indomitable spirit of that generation. These sandwiches might no longer be celebrated today, but their story deserves to live on. 24. Olive loaf sandwich. Ah, the iconic olive loaf sandwich. Just hearing the name brings memories of childhood lunches or carefree picnic days to mind. Olive loaf is one of those ingredients that seems divisive. You either loved it or couldn't understand its appeal. For me, the mere sight of those green olives dotted across the pressed loaf made me smile. It felt like a sandwich ingredient that was just a little fancy, even though it was an affordable deli staple. Making an olive loaf sandwich wasn't complicated, but something about it felt uniquely nostalgic. I remember layering slices of olive loaf carefully with mayonnaise or mustard on white or wheat bread, usually topping it off with crisp lettuce and a square or two of cheese. Every bite had that salty, slightly tangy burst of olive flavor, paired perfectly with the savory loaf. It wasn't flashy, but it was reliable, and that's what made it a lunchbox favorite. What amazes me is how quickly olive loaf disappeared from deli counters and weekday menus. Part of me wonders whether modern tastes have just grown away from the bold olive flavors that once made this loaf special. Even so, memories of olive loaf sandwiches remind me of simpler times, where meals didn't have to be gourmet to be good. 25. Fish stick sandwich. The 1950 ushered in the age of convenience foods, and nothing epitomized this better than the fish stick sandwich. To me, this was the ultimate comfort food growing up. Breaded fish sticks, hot from the oven or skillet, layered with tartar sauce or ketchup between slices of bread. What could be easier or more satisfying? The genius of the fish stick sandwich lay in how simple and adaptable it was. Fish sticks were a freezer staple, providing families with a quick dinner solution during the post-war boom of the 50s. For busy parents looking to feed hungry kids with minimal fuss, fish stick sandwiches were the perfect answer. The tender, flaky fish surrounded by its crispy coating was a hit with children, and even adults could appreciate its ease and flavor. For me, the tang of tartar sauce against the warm, crispy fish was what made the sandwich irresistible. Sometimes a little shredded lettuce or a slice of cheese would make its way in, adding texture and creaminess. It was a meal you didn't overthink, but one you savored with every bite. Though fish stick sandwiches no longer dominate dinner tables, they're a nostalgic nod to the convenience-focused, family-centered meals of the past. Conclusion. Forgotten sandwiches like the mock ham salad, victory sandwich, olive loaf sandwich, and fish stick sandwich tell a story far richer than their humble ingredients. Each one carries the spirit of its time, a blend of necessity, creativity, and a desire to make something satisfying with what was available. While they may no longer grace our tables regularly, they endure in the memories of those who shared them, reminding us of simpler days and the resilience of past generations. These sandwiches might have faded, but their legacy remains a testament to the power of ingenuity and the enduring comfort of a well-made meal.